Hi, this is Russ Anderson. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at the deformer capabilities of the geometric hierarchy tracking system in SynthEyes. And the deformer stuff is found only in the Pro version, not in the Intro version. So we're going to start out taking a look at some of the different modes here for creating new objects. And we're going to start out just creating a teapot. Here in our perspective view, I'm going to drop to wireframe mode. That's just a backslash. And initially, we'll go to the surface lasso mode, and we're going to start creating a rig for this by creating the initial baseline root node, which I just held down Shift and clicked on that mesh. And you'll see that it's created an object in the center that's going to move the whole thing around. Over in the little hierarchy menu view here, you'll see here's the new object, and the teapot is now parented to it. The object is the thing that holds all the animation, the path animation that's generated by tracking. The teapot is always at a fixed location with respect to that object. So that's our initial node. Now we can go and do the Shift Create again and start lassoing up some additional vertices. And here, went around a couple times, but here you've got a new object set up, and in the hierarchy view you'll see it's a child of the object as well as the teapot. So if I just want to play with it a little, I'll unlock this one joint so I can go and move it around, and you'll see that now I can move all those vertices around. So I'm doing this manually now, and that you might do as part of a little hand path animation, but also normally this would be generated automatically as part of a tracking operation using the geometric hierarchy tracker. So once I've set up that initial field of influence here, I can go and lasso in some more vertices if I want to. Let me just pop that out a little. And then likewise, if I decide I don't want something there, I can hold down Control and take it back out. So that's straightforward enough there. Let's go and take a look at the spout. I'm just using the middle mouse there to pan. So I'm going to go and select object 1 again because I want to create this new object for the spout as a child of object 1. So I have object 1 selected, hold down Shift, and start lassoing. And now I'm going to do the same thing and unlock an axis and start moving, and you see, uh-oh. But of course what's gone on is that I've got only the vertices on the front side of this spout were selected because after all it's a surface lasso mode, and the other guys have been left behind. So obviously that wasn't the best plan. I could go around to the other side and now add those other vertices, but instead it would be clever to use another mode. So I'm going to right click on the undo button to bring up the menu of operations, and I'm going to just go and back up that whole object creation in the first place. We'll switch to the lasso mode, and now I'm going to hold the Shift again, and now you see that as soon as I start dragging there, I get a object node already that is placed on one of the coordinate planes of the parent object. So this is a feature that makes it easy to set up hierarchies that kind of all line up on the same plane. I'm going to go and now start lassoing my spout. And now I've got that new object node right there smack in the middle of the spout. Now if I decide that's not really where I want it, I can edit the pivots and just go and adjust where it is. And that's much more common if I'm going to be doing a rotation. So I want to control where the center of rotation is. So here again, I've been able to set up a area of influence for this object. And now the two of them are independent. I can go and move either one of them around if I'm so inclined. Now, on the other hand, what about object 1? If I select it, I'm going to go back to the surface lasso, and I'm just going to select a couple of vertices on it, and you'll see that they drop out, they go dark. Now, they're still going to be moved, because if I move the whole thing, I still want all the vertices to move. But this area is now set up as a do not track area, so that when it does the tracking, that region won't be examined. For example, if there's some unmodeled geometry there, or maybe I'm tracking a bus and there's a window and there are a couple of people in that window that are waving and doing crazy things, so I don't want to mess up the tracking of the bus because of that. So this lets you get control over what gets tracked, what doesn't. Now you might notice it's a little backwards in that, for the object here, I selected a bunch of vertices, and then those are the things that moved. Here I selected some things, and those are the things that don't get tracked. A little backwards, but if you think about it, the do not track area is a comparatively rare event. Most everything's being tracked, so we only need to just knock out a few little spots as need be. And the do not track area information is associated with that root object. Here it's object 1, but it influences all the other objects as well. So if I go and add to that by lassoing some additional area out on the spout, that portion of this other spout object, object 3, isn't going to be tracked either. Okay, so now let's go back and we're going to do some more fun and games with deformations. So let's just create a nice big plane. And let's just unlight the wireframe. That looks a little better, a little easier to see there. And I'm going to set up the surface lasso on it and make your basic node there initially. And now let's lasso up another child object. So if I go and move this thing, you can see that it's a very coarse deformation. So that's uncool. So let's do something about that. And if this was a model that's been imported, it's up to you to have enough vertices in the model in the first place. Here we can just go and we're going to switch over to the 3D panel to do this. So I noticed that I clicked on just the icon and the panel, the geo panel stays there. If I click on the word, then the whole thing switches to the view associated with that particular room. So I'm going to switch to the numbers tool, and actually we'll go to select the plane because it's the plane that we want to mess with. And now I can start increasing the grid count here. And you'll notice that as I did that, the area that I had previously associated with the object has disappeared. And that's because I've rebuilt the geometry of the mesh. So if you change the geometry of the mesh, then you're going to need to do some repainting or relassoing or whatever, perhaps. And so you want to get your your mesh to be set up reasonably in the first place. Okay, so now we've got a lot more meshes to work with, or a lot more vertices to work with. And now if we do our surface lasso, we want to be selected with object 2. And now you'll see we've got a lot more finer control over it. Let's just center it up a little bit more. Now, of course, this is still a very binary, all or nothing sort of thing so far. And if you'd like to have a smoother blend there, smoother deformation, then you need to use painting, and you can do the painting either inside of SynthEyes or externally, as we'll see, using your image editor. So let's just pop that back out, and let's switch to the paint mode. Paint mode would let you paint to a new object, but we already have one. So we'll start painting, and you'll see that so far our brush size is a little small. So we can start painting, and you'll notice there are a couple of vertices that get left behind apparently, just because in the course of doing what I did and creating a donut hole, the facets wound up facing away from the initial viewpoint. So I just spun back around to be able to play with that. So now you can see that we've got some nice smoother blending here. And just like you could do a lasso and a control lasso to unlasso, here you can do a control and unpaint also. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that we've got this flat intersection in here, and that's really important because the only parts that are going to be tracked are the ones where the weighting function is up at 100%. So we don't actually track these transition regions. We generate them so you have nice smooth transitions as needed, but those aren't tracked. So the brush is actually set up so that there's a center part that's at 100%, and then only part of it is not at 100% to generate the transitions. And with that in mind, you'll see that there is a brush strength value, but that's not typically all that useful unless you need to patch up a couple of individual vertices, because it's rare that you want to change something to be a whole area of 50% or something, because then it's not going to be tracked at all. So all of this painting stuff applies to, would apply to the teapot or whatever shape you happen to import or whatever as well. So now let's go. Let's just paint up this a little bit bigger. Now let's think about doing a child object, or really a grandchild. So I'll just decrease my brush size a bit. And I'm going to hold down Shift, And I'm going to now paint a little bit on that. And again, now I've got a child. If I go and move its parent, then everything moves along as well. So this is the hierarchy, that we've set up. And you've got 3 different levels here, and that's what the geometric hierarchy tracking is about. You can set up as many levels as you like, as many as reasonable that correspond to what you're doing in the scene. And one thing that you'll notice is that my region of influence for object 3 is contained within the influence area of number 2. If that's not the case, then strange things are going to happen. If I go and paint up some other little area over here. Actually, let's go. Well, that would have worked. If I create something over there, it's going to move over there, but stranger things are going to happen when I mess with this one. You'll see that it's moving and the other ones aren't. And that's like saying you've got a hand that's connected to an arm and it's connected to the body, but oh, by the way, the hand isn't really connected to the arm. So it doesn't make sense. So one child should always be contained within the area of influence of its parents. And similarly, but backwards, here's my object 1, now I create a new child for it. So object 4 and object 2 are siblings. So now I can move them around independently. And all is well. But I don't want to do something like this, where I create 2 siblings here. 5 and 2 are siblings. And now I'm going to go, and the 2 of them overlap. You see some strange things happen in here in the area of the overlap. So that when you have an overlap of 2 things that aren't children, that amounts to a setup issue. So you have smooth blendings between an object and its parent, but not between 2 different siblings that are at the same level or at different levels in the hierarchy. If there's a very small deformation involved, you may be able to get away with it okay, but otherwise it's a setup error. So you want to avoid that. So this is all done using painting inside of SynthEyes. You can also do it with external images as well. So up here there's the Vertex Maps button, which lets you set up the vertex map and weights for an object using an image. So let's click on that. And sometimes you don't know exactly what's what the layout of the mesh is and the texture coordinates of the that you're going to be painting. So we can just go and unwrap the mesh. And when you do that, let's see, what do I... you'll get something like this. Here you're seeing the geometry of the mesh. when I've got an existing paint job on it, you'll see exactly what's what as well. And this is a way that you can verify that you've got children within their parents and that you don't have, brothers and sisters that are overlapping. But also you use this as a guide for doing your painting. Now, so you do that in Photoshop or GIMP or whatever, and when you do the painting there, you want to produce an image that's all 100% white in the area that you want to have included for that particular object. And you want to have 100% black as areas that are not associated with the object. So let's close that up. Back to this panel. I open this up on object 4 over here. So I've got an image already sitting around, that arg image. So I've set up the image file name, but now I can actually select which channel from that image I want to use. So, it's green by default, but I can actually store 3 different maps in one image. So I might want to use, the green channel for this object, the red for this object, and the blue for this other object. And rather than having to have 3 different images sitting around, you can just do all the painting inside of one particular file and make life maybe a little simpler. If not, you don't have to do that. But you just have the option of picking whichever channel you want to use. Once you do that, you click the import, and you'll see that data is then used to drive the weight channel. So now we've got our R literally burned into the mesh. And you'll notice that this has violated my earlier rule of not having children overlap. But that's the way it goes. Maybe we'll just, take a few of them out. So there's our R. So hopefully this is giving you an idea of what you can set up as far as the deformers within SynthEyes. And all this stuff is animated, and the geometric hierarchy tracking process is designed to go and create the tracking data to drive these deformations so that the object matches up throughout your entire shot. Once you've done that, you can export the deformed meshes, the animated deformations, to your 3D package. And depending on what export you use, it might be an Alembic or a film box or Blender or whatever. There may be a couple extra little files created that have those animated vertex positions in them, or it might be built into the file. You also have the option of exporting, where you're always going to have exported the animation paths of these different objects through the bones that have been generated as a result of the tracking process. So the deformation process here within SynthEyes is just a simple and pretty direct sort of thing. And if you want to have real fine control over how that deformation is done with a fancier deformation system in your own animation package, you can do that. Just take advantage of the positions of the bones that you're getting with SynthEyes and generate your own deformed meshes within your animation package. So you have flexibility with that. This is here to give you what you need to do the tracking and be able to see what's happening. If you don't like the exact details of how it's turned out, that they're not going to be camera ready for producing a final product, fine. You can just use whatever deformation system you like in your own particular package. So there's a whole lot of flexibility to that process. So I think this is probably giving you a whole lot to think about. So I'll let you go do that. Have a good day, and thanks for watching.